Welcome to the weekly news around Bali and Asia. My name is Bruce Pullman, and I'm going to be talking about the news every week. These are short newscasts about topics of interest to those of us that live or visit Bali or Asia. I'll be covering all of Asia and maybe a little bit in Melanesia, another of my interest. And I'm an anthropologist. This newscast is coming to you from the Peripatetic Anthropologist YouTube channel. Good evening. Welcome to the weekly news around Bali and Asia for the week of March 9th. My name is Bruce, and well, it's not March 9th. The week is almost over, and I'm just putting this here because I've had to do the first segment 4 times this week. The first segment is about the coronavirus. And the situation has changed so rapidly, day by day, especially in Indonesia, that I've redone it, and at this point, I'm just going to put it out here. And this is the way that it is. Saturday, March 14th, 9 p.m. Indonesian time, or Beijing time, if you prefer. So where are we with the coronavirus? Worldwide, we have about 150,000 cases, 5,500 deaths, more or less. The situation is drastic in Italy, as I'm sure everybody is aware of. Europe is now the center of the pandemic, and the President of the United States, Trump, declared a national emergency and has banned flights from Europe. So things get stranger and stranger by the day. What about here? Well, as you know, if you watched the last few newscasts, the government denied that there was a virus, and we get to, now we're up to today, 96 with 5 deaths. And one of those deaths was in Bali, which by this time I'm sure everybody is aware of. It made international news once it was announced. It was a tourist, British woman, who died at the Sanglah Hospital in Pasar, and so the government had to admit that the virus has reached Bali, although there was a lot of fudging about this. Well, she came here with the virus, she had many complications, and so there were a lot of explanations to try to minimize the impact that this could have on the island and what we have left of tourism, with the enormous drop in Asian tourists. The fact of the matter is she died. She had the virus, she tested positive, regardless of what other complications she had. There's a question about transparency, and the government in Jakarta has addressed this specifically, and in a way that's less than assuring, saying, well, we're not being transparent about this because we can't trust the Indonesian people not to panic, because Indonesian people panic, and so we're keeping control of the information and releasing it basically as we see fit. To me, that's not the best way to go about things. The uncertainty leads to fear, and is more likely to lead to panic. As we've seen in Korea and China, after they initially botched the Wuhan situation, transparency has not led to panic. There is no reason to think that Indonesians are any less in self-control, have any less self-control than Koreans or Chinese or anybody else in the world. Panic buying has set in everywhere. That's not an excuse for not being transparent. So what do we have here? We have at least one case. Several of the medical workers that were treating the deceased woman are under observation now. Whether they're positive for the virus or not is unknown. There have been questions about how Bali is going to deal with this, and rumors, many rumors. One of the problems with this is that there are so many rumors, so many false reports on social media that people immediately pick up on. And it's important to realize, one, that there is information that comes from reliable sources that needs to be checked. Don't believe everything you read or hear. And two, this isn't a cause for panic. It shouldn't be a cause for panic. The virus is serious. It has been declared a pandemic. People do die, 5,500 people. People in my age range are particularly susceptible to this. Younger people, less so. And so, check your facts before you spread information on social media. So what's the situation in Bali right now? Well, the government has said they are not going to isolate Bali. They're not going to close Bali off. But it's just been announced by the government that the big Ogo Ogo parade has been canceled in Denpasar, and the people can do their Ogo Ogo parades. This is for Sepi, which is coming up in another 11 days. The Ogo Ogo parade in another 10 days. Local Banjar Ogo Ogo parades are permitted, but the main one will be canceled. The government is not going to restrict tourists in general from coming. And so, where does that leave you? Should you come to Bali? That's up to you. You have to take all things into consideration. Travel at this time is changing so rapidly. Countries are blocking themselves off. It's happening in Europe, isolating themselves. The United States is isolating itself. Indonesia has banned tourists from places like Iran and South Korea and Italy. I think Italy's on this list. So, should you come? I don't know. That's up to you. You just have to realize that things can change. You may get here and find out that you can't go home. New Zealand has just said that everybody, including citizens, that flies in has to do 14-day, go into 14-day isolation. That's everybody, except for people from Pacific Islands around New Zealand, where there have been no cases. And so you may come here and then find out when you go home that you're going to be forced to go into isolation. So that's something you have to consider. Is it safe here? People in Singaraja, where I live, are going on with their activities like normal. There is on social media, and this is just before I started this just came up. Social media today, a report that a patient was positive and was hospitalized at the Central Public Hospital in Singaraja. There's just been news released clarifying this, that no, the patient is not positive, the patient is under observation. Test results have not come back, so the patient could be negative or could be positive. It's unknown. And that's pretty much the situation here. We don't know how far the virus has spread. People are not being tested in mass like in South Korea, where they can do 10,000 tests a day. That's not happening in Indonesia. People may be sick and they don't know about it. To them, it's just a case of a cold or a flu for younger people. Older people may feel the same. So this is the situation. The situation is we don't know. And so, you know, we go on with our lives and live day to day and take some precautions. So, social distance, hand washing, follow the rules that have been, or the guidelines that have been released. If you don't need to go out into social situations, don't. Especially if you were an elderly person, wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Try to strengthen your immune system if you can. Eat well. Get your rest. Don't smoke cigarettes. I say as I try not to smoke cigarettes. So we're going to have to get through this. The main thing is don't panic. Take care of yourself. Follow the guidelines and be safe. Okay. So, a little grim, but we have to be realistic about this. It's a problem. We're going to have to deal with it as we can. And let's go on to the second story, which is related. The second story of the evening is the economic effects on the island of Bali. And this comes from Semanyak Times. The number of foreign tourist arrivals in Bali for the month of February dropped dramatically. And the numbers are quite interesting. For example, the month of February was last January, well, this January, a few months ago, we had 590,269 foreign tourist arrivals, and in February that number dropped to 392,824. So a drop of 197,445. And this has been attributed to the ban on travel to and from China, and we also have banned flights from certain places in South Korea, Daegu for sure. And so our Asian tourists are just not here. And from what I hear, the streets in some of our most popular places, like Ubud, are much less crowded than usual, and businesses are beginning to suffer. I talked to a travel owner the other day who told me for the month of February he made zero. All of his Asian tourists canceled. And the government said they expect this to get worse for the month of March as the virus continues to spread And airlines are continuing to cut down on the number of flights and the number of flight destinations. And let's go on to something a little less depressing. Oh yes, this is cool. So Fly Me Away. I didn't know this was happening. This is really cool. I came across this story. And there's a startup called Frogs Indonesia. It's a Jogja-based startup, and they have created a two-person flying taxi. That's right, a flying taxi. And you can see the right here. You can see the flying taxi. It looks pretty cool. It carries two passengers, up to 200 kilos. And the idea is that it will save air pollution. It will cut down on air pollution in urban areas and also on traffic jams. Now, this is really cool. This is going to happen. They did a test the other day. Now this helicopter. I'm calling it a helicopter. It only went to 2 centimeters off the ground. Okay, so it's just hovering, and they found that they're going to have to make some changes because of the denseness of the air in Yogyakarta. They said so. They need to make some modifications on the motors. The aircraft is called the Frogs 282. Which stands for 2 passengers, 8 motors, or 8 motors on this thing, and a second generation. And their plans are to display it at a show in Germany, I believe, which has been canceled, like venues are all over the world, canceled because of the coronavirus, but is going to be done later in the year, and so they're going to take their flying taxi helicopter with them. This is so cool. I want to be passenger. This is really neat. In fact, I'd like to have one. So, good job. Okay, Indonesia and innovative technology. Great. Okay, keep going. And something that happened, the unplanned consequences of the shortcut, the bypass that goes from Singaraja to the south to Mengwitani. You can now bypass, and I haven't taken this road, so I'm just going by this news article, which was in I think the Bali Express, and you bypass the well-known popular fruit and vegetable and artsy craftsy market in Candikuning. You always see tour buses up there and cars, tourist cars, full of people buying fruits and vegetables. We stopped there all the time back when we used to do a lot of traveling back and forth. The prices are a little high sometimes, but the stuff is absolutely fresh, and it's a nice stop if you are going from the south up to the north, and I have a little discussion of that in this video right here from when I did my 5 great trips to the north. And income is down because there's no buses, there's no tourists. Now, the head of trade for the Tabanan area said that there were 2 reasons for this. One was the bypass is shortcut, so people don't have to stop there anymore, and it's affecting income. There's just not the numbers. The second, he said, was the coronavirus and the lack of tourists in Bali, and that's too bad because there are a lot of businesses there. I think he said 117 businesses. That seems like a lot. But income is way down, and so that's unfortunate. If you happen to be traveling, not using the shortcut, in order to take the old road and have a leisurely drive, stop by the market, give them some business. Okay, and last news item for the week. This is short. Yepi. Yepi is coming. March 25th to March 26th, starting 6 a.m. on March 25th and going until 6 a.m. March 26th. What is Nyepi? Nyepi is called the Day of Silence. It's the Balinese New Year. It's the day when no one can leave their house. You can't be out on the street. And there's a list of things that you can't do on Nyepi. What can't you do? You can't light fires. Now, people still light fires a lot here for cooking, for a variety of things. Lights have to be low. People are supposed to cover their windows to keep the lights from showing. No loud noise, no loud music. For the more spiritually minded, it's a day of meditation, of deep thought. No pleasurable activities. Some people fast all day. You are not allowed to work. And kind of controversially, there's no TV and there's no internet anymore. This is just the last few years that there's been this complete ban on TV and the internet. So, tourists can wander around their hotels. They can't leave the grounds. They can't go to the beach. A lot of the tourists, the employees, the hotel employees, will not be there. And the airport is closed. One of the cool things, I mean, this is, Bali is, I think, the only place in the world that closes an international airport for 24 hours for a special holiday. That's one of the things that makes this island just such a wonderful, unique place. And so we got 24 hours. What else? Day before Nyepi is the Ogos come out. You have the Ogo parade, and I'll talk a little bit about that next week. My granddaughter is a big Ogo fan. She's trying to get me to buy the little Ogo models that they have for sale, which are pretty expensive. And we pass by on our weekend walks around Singaraja. We pass by some of the places where Ogos are being made. And so I'll get some photos. And so that's it. Nyepi's coming. Some foreigners that live here that don't like Nyepi, that don't want to spend a day, can't give up 24 hours, go to other islands, to Lombok, where they can have fun and party. But Nyepi is for me, I love it. It's one of the things that makes Bali unique, so I spend the day. I'm not a Balinese Hindu. I don't spend the day meditating, but I spend a quiet day reading and thinking. And so that's about it for this week. And thanks for stopping by. Happy travels and stay safe as always.